Charlie, and we're talking about Miss Marvel episode 5. Let me just say that I'm not a big fan of the show entirely, but I will say that the intro in this one was very good. It was very good. It was very diverse. You have an old Indian song, like an old Bollywood song, and then it goes from, we're always seeing the same Marvel title card, but then it goes into more Technicolor, and then it screens into the 4:3 aspect ratio, which is the original aspects of TVs back in the day. And 90s kids, you remember the small screens, right? The old TVs where you have to, hang on, you got to stand there, or, you got to make the channels right, or mom, get off the dial-up. You remember those. And so, it goes from that, and then it goes into an old-timely, newsreel, and I thought that was cool. I love history, so it really kind of takes you into, okay, this is how Miss Marvel's backstory fits into the history of, our world, because a lot of the history is the same, in the comic book worlds, but to see where they kind of, coexist. And so it goes into that, but then the title card, how we're always seeing Miss Marvel in all the different colors and stuff like that, we're seeing it in different backgrounds, but also different languages, and I thought that was super cool. And so, it goes off into, then we start picking up where we left off. Kamala is transported back into the partition, but now we're taking a different focus, and we're focusing more on her grandparents meeting, which is her grandma, or her great-grandmother Aisha, and her great-grandfather. And so, this part was really good to see a backstory of the family and like kind of how they start and stuff like that. But it really didn't give you too much. It kind of was just like a little nibble. It's like, okay, she's running from something, and then she meets this guy, they fall in love and make a family. It's like, great, okay, cool. But at the same time, I was kind of like, okay, of course something's going to come up, but they really don't hint at like anything big. Like, okay, the last time we saw Aisha, she was in a cave, surrounded by the 10 rings on their feet. So the British soldier fighting her or chasing her, is he a part of the 10 rings, or is he an occupant of the British, from the time frame? And so, I don't know, the whole episode still, in all, like for 40 minutes, felt very rushed. Like, you spend a good half of the episode flashback, and you're learning about the family and this and that, and then you realize kind of Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban moment where Kamala is the one that saved her grandmother, and she saw her grandmother was lost, and she's like, hey, we're gonna get you back to your dad, and she makes the little portals, and then turns out her grandmother is the one who made the stars that light the way to the father, and she was like, oh, I did it. I'm the one that saved my grandmother. And so, she, of course, you see her great-grandmother, Aisha, get stabbed by the crazy chick. And, I mean, it felt very rushed completely as a story to me. And so, I would have wanted the entire episode to take a little bit more time with that, because once we come back to the real world, it was like, okay, we're back. And then the partition, the veil is broken. And, the crazy chick was like, oh, it's open. And so they're like, we can finally go home. And they start touching the veil. And it kind of creates almost like a Terrigenesis, from the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode arc that they had with the Inhumans. They're having their Terrigenesis, but remember, not everybody got their powers. Some people actually died. So, the one girl from the bad guys, when she's touching the veil and she dies, it's like, okay, well, you weren't really chosen per se. But then the mom, the crazy chick, was like, oh, I'm gonna touch the veil and I'm gonna open it, or I can only close it. And Kamala's like, you took your family, like you took Aisha's family away. You ruined that for her, and you're gonna do the same thing. You have a son, do it for him. And the lady was like, oh, yeah, there's only one way to close it. Kamran. And then she touches the veil, and then you see the veil just kind of go around the world and catch where Kamran's at, and he gets his powers. Not how that happens in the comics, for sure. But, he gets his powers, and then it's a quick little like, okay, cool. And then, her parents, Kamala's parents, well, Kamala's mom and grandmother show up, and they see that she can do her powers. And it's like, okay, cool. And her mom's like, what? The whole time you could have done that? The whole time you've been the night, what do they call it? Nightlight, a hard light. And so she was like, this has been you the whole time? And she was like, yeah. And so the grandmother was like, we're all special. We have something in us. And, it kind of makes the grandmother not crazy, because she's like, I know I've seen this. I've seen this before, blah, blah, blah. Same story that we've heard in all the episodes. And so, this brings the mom and Kamala a little closer because she's like, Kamala, I'm so proud of you, and she's seeing what her daughter has grown into, one, the hero she's going to become, but also, the person she's becoming. It's like, as a parent, you hope your kids grow up to be great people. And so she's seeing that and like, wow, I've been hard on her, but yet she's doing it on her own. And then, of course, you get all these little Easter eggs, and, she picks up her necklace medallion that was Kamala's, but it was broken. And, of course, what is it? It's in the shape of the Miss Marvel zigzag, what do you want to call it? But then, like, the ending just kind of abrupts because Kamran goes to Bruno's house, and he was like, Bruno, or he calls him Brian, and he was like, you're never gonna get my name. And they kind of had like a small little like bonding moment, and he was like, you got powers? And then of course the DODC shows up with their Stark drones and then just blows the place up, and then it's like credits. Okay, we're just gonna leave it on the teaser for the season finale next week. Like, there's a lot more things that you can go into, but overall, if I'm gonna give this one a good rating, I would say it's like a 7 out of 10. I mean, the flashback of the grandparents I thought was cool to see. Like, you get to see how her family history is and kind of where that connects to the storyline, and then how this connects to their partition story. So you're getting some things answered, but like as far as Kamala's story overall, we're not really getting too much of her. Like, I really enjoyed Kamala in Jersey. She's trying to figure out her powers. She's trying to understand who she is. But at the same time, she's trying to be an Avenger. But when you remove her from that, and then you're deep diving more into a family thing, then, you're kind of taking away from her story. Then now we're focusing more on the great-grandmother, and I feel like we should focus more on Kamala, but of course we may get that in the Marvels movie, but of course if this is supposed to set that up, then the season finale, it could go two ways. It could fulfill a lot of this, it could not. That's just me. The series has been really hard for me to get into, I like I keep saying, and so I mean it's just been kind of like wishy-washy for me, and like there's certain things I like, certain things I'm like, I could do a little better, could do a lot better, a little better, a lot better, whatever you want to pick. But yeah, guys, so I hope you enjoy this. Next week we got the season finale, and we'll see what happens with that. We got Thor: Love and Thunder tomorrow. Our initial review is up from Neezy, and then I'll be coming back, a spoiler review, and so everything kind of deep diving and see how it relates to the comics and this and that. And so, in that comic, Thor versus Gore, the God Butcher, is actually pretty deep. Like, we'll get into that for that one. But all right, guys, we'll see you next week.